Welcome to the Legacy League's Quarterfinals Postgame Show. I'm your host, Joe Catapano. I'm back. Alongside me, Joe, Mike, Connor, and Greg. I think we have a pretty good panel right here to talk about these quarterfinals games. We have 4 teams left battling it out for the Winter 18 playoffs. We'll have the Blue Devils, No Limit, Temptations, Chasers. Those are 4 last teams left. But let's talk about how we got to those last 4 teams. So to start it off, we had number 1 No Limit taking on number 9 Goon Squad on Court 1 tonight. Goon Squad got to the No Limit game by beating the Monstars, the defending champions, on Monday night. So Mike, I think you wanted to talk about this one. What happened here? I think for a long time in this game, Goon Squad kind of stuck around and could have won the game.
Yeah, like you said, Goon Squad stuck around. Give credit to them. Playing with a short bench, only two-man bench. Goon Squad stuck around. You know, they did that all year. Their record wasn't like how they played. They were a lot better at what the record said. But No Limit kept their composure throughout, and they got a critical turnover at the end and an easy basket. And Eric Singleton said, we'll see you in the finals.
Mm-hmm. And for Connor and Greg, some of the experienced guys, do you think this is No Limit kind of just playing down to an opponent, or was this more of Goon Squad playing up to No Limit and maybe had the chance to take this one?
I know they were missing Will Hudson and Derek Davis, and they may not be their best players by any means, but I think they're actually really big, especially in a game like this. Goon Squad's a very efficient team, very experienced team, and with No Limit, you know, they got all the talent and the athleticism, but Derek brings the shooting ability and Will brings the rebounding and the big boyness down low, and I think those two are big for this team going forward. But all credit to Goon Squad, they played a hell of a game, but No Limit continues to look like the favorite by taking care of business over and over again.
And we'll go a little out of order here just to talk about the team that No Limit will take on in the semifinals next week. The number 5 seed Temptations, kind of an upset, seed-wise, upset number 4, Team Moose 80-73. This was a good one. Temptations got here by beating BS&B, while Moose beat Shooter Shoot last week. So that's how we got to this quarterfinals game. So Temptations only won by 7, but I think at one point in the second half it was up to 18. The Temptations, I think, pretty easily took this one. For whoever was watching that game, what did you see from that one?
Yeah, so I was watching that game, and the Temptations, they were just hitting from all spots of the court. Both Santarelli brothers and Melquan Horton, they were just kicking the ball out. They were hitting threes like it was nothing. Also, Troy Brunson down low, he was huge and down the paint, just getting lots of offensive rebounds, gaining extra possessions, and putting it back up to get some more points for them.
Mm-hmm. And I'll put Connor and Greg on the spot again, who've been around for a little while to see the Temptations. I think this is the farthest they've gone in any season, making it to the semifinals next week. Is this the best Temptations team you've seen, and maybe why do you think they're better this season and have gotten to the semifinals, which has kind of evaded them to this point?
I think it's Melquan Horton. He's that difference maker. Obviously, the Santarelli brothers, Troy Brunson. This Temptations team has brought back a lot of familiar faces over the seasons, but now Melquan on that team, new face this year, he's totally been a game changer for them. And it's interesting because, they just lost the Team Moose earlier in the season when they didn't have Carmine. And then just at the All-Star draft the other day, Melquan said during the draft that if Carmine was there when they played Team Moose, he thinks that they would have won by double digits. And then tonight they come out and they had a pretty handily solid victory over Team Moose with Carmine on the floor. So I think those two together are just the dynamic duo that makes them, that team that's going to be contending later in the postseason, like maybe they have not done in the past, like you mentioned.
Okay, and the number 2 Blue Devils took down number 7 Flint Tropics 59-51. Flint beat Stranger Danger last night to get to this game. And Flint, up at the end of the first, up at the end of the second, up at the end of the third, lost the game. What kind of went into that decision, and how did Flint collapse down the stretch?
This game was back and forth. It was just hard-fought, very physical game. Each team was getting into each other. But down the stretch, Mike Davis, he kind of took over his team. He got all of his teammates around involved, and they were just hitting shots, and their chemistry was on point. So Flint Tropics, they play hard all season. Everyone knows that. They get under team skin, they get physical, and they cause other teams to kind of break down and not really go against their game plan. But then in the end, Blue Devils, they were just hitting shots, playing good defense, and they got the victory.
Yeah, from what I saw, it seemed like everything that was working for Flint Tropics in the first half went the opposite and was working for the Blue Devils in the second half. What I also thought interesting for Greg and Connor down there, the game was, I think, tied, or they were up 1 for the Blue Devils in the final minute. And it wasn't Mike Davis who had the ball in that final minute. I think it was Pratt that was kind of leading the charge there. Does that surprise you, or does that make you see how lethal these Blue Devils are, that Mike Davis doesn't even have to have the ball in the last minute.
No, I think that shows how much trust Mike Davis has in Pratt, and I know they're very good friends. I mean, you could say maybe best friends, and I love the dynamic they have because, a funny stat, and probably the most important stat all year, is Mike Davis has no technical fouls. And I think the story for Flint is they get too many techs, and that's why they're still not alive. And I think the biggest aspect of Mike Davis and Pratt is they feed off each other, and as one goes, another goes, and if one's struggling, they kind of say, hey, let's keep going, and they always look for each other's shots, and I love that dynamic. I really love it. It's like a Washington Brothers dynamic.
Mm-hmm. And the number 2 Blue Devils in the semifinals will take on the number 3 Chasers, who tonight beat the number 6 Rim Breakers. The Chasers beat Semi-Pro to get to the quarterfinals, and the Rim Breakers beat the Throne in the first round as well to get to the quarterfinals. Chasers 74, Rim Breakers 66, but this one was back and forth, and for the most of the game, I think it was within 4 points, and I think this was the 4th game. No game tonight was decided by more than 10 points, so all very close competitive games. I think, Mike, you were the one watching this one. What kind of was that deciding factor that got the Chasers over the hump?
Well, I think it's the Washington Brothers. I think their leadership really showed here tonight. That's why they're in the semifinals. They can challenge No Limit for that championship. But give who are they playing?
Rim Breakers.
Rim Breakers. I said they were the most exciting team all season. But give the Rim Breakers a lot of credit. They always had fun on the bench, and they definitely earned a lot of respect.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the most athletic games I saw here tonight. And for Greg and Connor down there, seed-wise, we have 1, 2, 3, 5 in the semifinals next week. But do you think we have the 4 best teams on the court next week?
Yeah, I think that we honestly do. I think Greg would probably agree. We've always been up on Team Moose, but we've always questioned their ability to compete with these elite teams that we consider in the top echelon. We've always paid a lot of respect to Team Moose, because we've always kind of surprised that they were able to do so well without Connor Daly, like Greg's whispering in my ear, who was a huge piece for that team last summer, was the reason why they were able to contend at a high level. So for them to come back this season and still contend at a high level without, arguably their best player, I know Kevin Blake's great, Brad Seaman's great, but I think Connor Daly last year was something really special for that team. And I know that they didn't come out on top this year, but I think, like you said, we got the 4 best teams. The Temptations with Carmine and Melquan, like I already mentioned earlier in this show here, is they're a different team than they have been in the past, and I think that they're definitely qualified to be in that top 4.
Mm-hmm. So 4 great games tonight in the quarterfinals. We'll have 2 great semifinals next week between 4 great teams. That'll wrap it up for the Legacy League's Quarterfinals Postgame Show. For Joe and Mike, Connor, and Greg. Follow us on Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Legacy_Leagues on most things, and make sure to check out the website at thelegacyleagues.com for all our postseason coverage here on the Legacy Leagues. We'll see you for the semifinals next week.